wir uns noch mal wieder.
In this video, I will create the beat you just heard in the intro. The sample I'm going to use is from a Dutch Schlager singer from his 2013 album. And that particular song starts with a piano intro that's quite clean, of a few notes, and then it gets into the song and the singing. So that is the part I'm going to try to flip into something new.
Wer weiß, ob wir uns.
So it's really the beginning of that song, those few piano notes. For this track, I want to work on a lower tempo, but I'm going to put my Ableton session on around 160 and then program the drums half tempo. I want to add a bass line as well, and maybe some kind of effect sound for in the background. So without further ado, let's go to Ableton and let's start. So I'm going to duplicate this track onto a new track and then crop the sample. First warp it, set the starting point here, and then I'm thinking this is perfect for a 2-bar loop, so let's put it on 2 bars. Actually crop the rest of the sample off. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's see how that sounds. Let's put a low cut EQ on there. This is a really nice loop and it's kind of soothing, but the main problem I have with this is that it sounds very bright. I can of course EQ it, but I think what is an easier way to make it a bit more dark and potentially menacing is to just pitch it down. I'm going to pitch it down exactly 1 octave, so it keeps the same notes, just played 1 octave down. This is really inspired by Mobb Deep's Shook Ones, where I think it is also a piano loop, where they pitch it down so much, I think it's even more than 1 octave, and you get this really menacing, slow kind of melody. Let's do that. Let's pitch it down -12. Let's change the warp mode to complex. Now that we have this loop, let's add a kick and a snare and some hi-hats as well. So for the drums, I'm going to my vinyl drum sample pack. You can find it on Gumroad as well. Let's find something kind of heavy for a kick. Let's try this one. Let's cut a little bit of the tail off and let's program these on half tempo, so only 4 in 2 bars. Let's find the snare as well. Something like this. Let's also fade out the snare and do a low cut EQ. This is not half tempo, this is still regular tempo, so I need a way less. Let's lower the snare already. Let's do a double kick and let's lower the second one in volume a bit. Let's color code that. And then for the hi-hat, I'm going to put it in a drum sampler so that we can pitch it up. Something bright like this. Also put a low cut EQ. Let's make this mono. Start with the original pitch on the beat on a lower volume, and then the offbeat's a bit louder. And then the roll at the end, we want to pitch it up a little bit at least. Let's do something like this. To create a kind of a cool rolling effect, and also let's add a little bit of an auto pan on the hi-hats. Okay, so now we have a 2-bar loop, but it's half tempo, so it's actually 1 bar only. So let's extend it to 4 and maybe do the hi-hat roll only every 2 bars or every 4 bars, so it's not every bar, because that's a bit too much. And then maybe create a bassline. So let's extend the sample to 8 bars and the drums as well, like this. And then for the hi-hats, we do it every 2 bars, every 4 bars, the roll. And then for the bass, I'm gonna use a operator, like it's a sub bass. since the sample, if we play the sample alone without the drums, we can see that there's an E and at least an E and a G sharp in it. So maybe the bass can be these two notes. Let's play the bass along with the beat. Something very simple like that. So let's put in the MIDI notes. Oh, again, we want a 4-bar loop because this is at half tempo. So that's something to remember. And at the end, we want maybe a long G sharp. This is very basic, the bass, but we just want to fill up the low end because the sample doesn't have the low end. So if you now look at the sample, already had a low cut at 100. Let's remove that. Now we can keep that, and then the bass fills up that space at the bottom. So without the bass, and with the bass. Alright, and now we want a variation. So this is a nice basic loop, but then at some point you need to create some kind of variation from the sample. So let's do that. And I'm thinking, so first we're going to extend the sample, maybe 4 bars. What if we play parts of the sample? So if we mute every quarter, the second quarter and the fourth quarter of the bar, and then we sort of move it over. So basically from a 2-bar loop, we make a 1-bar loop. And then we just repeat that. And then actually make it only 2 bars. And then maybe here we shorten it. You sort of get a movement that it goes faster, because it does go faster. And then we repeat the snares in the last half bar, like something like this. Play from here on. For the snare roll, we want to have a little bit of volume automation, so it doesn't feel like it's hammering like a machine gun too much. So we put... So now we created a variation by using part of the sample, and it sort of creates a bit of energy and movement, but we didn't change any of the pitch. It's just chopping audio on the timeline. One other thing I want to do before we get to adding another layer to this beat is work a bit on the hi-hat. What we could do with the hi-hat is that the drum sampler has a built-in effects section, so maybe we can enable that, like the 8-bit for instance. So without the effect on the hi-hat. And now with the effect on the hi-hat. So we basically made it a bit lo-fi. This beat is already quite okay. Let's add one more sound, and that's kind of a synthesizer sound in the background, some kind of effect, maybe something with delay, just to make it a bit more spacious or spacey. And for this kind of spacey sound in the background, I'm going to start with a preset. So let's look at the drift presets in Ableton. And let's use the filters. So I want something ambient and effects, textural. Yeah, maybe something like that. Let's play something. Let's change the release. It's very long. Let's lower the volume and make this an 8-bar loop. So that's fine. Let's add another layer for the second part where there's sort of a break. And here I think we can just get away with some noise. So I'm going to use the drift init patch again, turn off the oscillators and just turn up the noise. Low cut it at 500 and just play for 1 bar a noise. We can make an auto pan that's with a high amount and a low rate. Then if we lower this in the mix, perhaps we can move the note to 4 bars, make this 10 bars, and then add another note here for a break. One more thing left to do, and that is a little bit of an intro where we kind of maybe stutter the sample and then before we get into the beat. I'm gonna add 2 bars in front of this beat. What if we reverse the sample actually? Let's play 1 bass note before the beat drops. So as you can see, sometimes it can be quite simple by using a loop, pitching it down, and then creating variations by chopping it up, keeping the same order, but just play less of the loop to create kind of an variation and some kind of energy, building it out with drums and other synth sounds. Of course, I can easily continue with more layers and more complexity, but this is a good starting point. Hopefully this was inspiring for you. Thanks for watching. Keep making music and see you in the next one.